Before we start this episode, I just want to give a big thanks to our sponsor, Open Fortune. You might be thinking, Fortune Cookie, what the hell is this that is sponsoring this episode? Open Fortune is giving brands the most creative ad canvas that is out there, the Fortune Cookie. They've created relationships with over 47,000 restaurants, reaching 99% of zip codes, and have turned it into one of the most Trojan horse advertising platforms out there. So thank you for Open Fortune for making this possible. We are joined today by Olivia Donnan. She started out her career at Nylon Communications before working her way up in Starwood hotels and resorts worldwide. She then worked at Marriott International, moving to New York City, where she found an apartment in Chelsea, which is pretty cool, and we'll get a fun story about that, before working at Generator as head of marketing and communications. She now is the VP of Brand and Communications of Yotel, which is one of the best hotels I've ever stayed at, and that's why I was so excited to have her on the show. Olivia, talk to me.
I feel, firstly, thank you for having me. Great to be here. Hopefully, at least, I can send this to some people and they'll stop thinking I'm a travel agent.
There you go.
It's worth it. How did I get this job? I think very boring start, like traditional academia.
I'm gonna cut you off there because it's funny. One question where the host or hosts just interrupt the person as they try and answer it. And so I'm curious, like, what did you want to be when you grew up?
An actress.
Okay. Who was the model? Like, who was the
Friends.
dream?
It was Friends. Like, I wanted to be Jennifer Aniston in Friends. I don't know if that then manifested.
Rachel.
Yeah. But no, I wanted to be Jennifer Aniston playing Rachel in Friends. So that then maybe manifested into moving to New York.
And being the main character energy and
like,
all that stuff. Yeah,
sure.
yeah.
But I think I thought that they really were like kind of living that life, and you got to like be an actress and live in New York and work for Ralph Lauren or whatever. I was very confused. Yeah. I was 7 years old.
Okay.
But that's what I wanted to do.
Okay.
And then my dad was a doctor, and I was like, oh, maybe I'll be a doctor.
My dad's a doctor as well.
Great. Yeah. Never get a day off school because you're never sick.
Yep.
I literally he sent me to school with appendicitis.
What kind of doctor was he?
A general practitioner.
Okay.
Yeah. So I might be one of the only people who sent to school for 2 days with appendicitis. And then the surgeon was like, wow, this nearly ruptured. I was like, speak to my dad. Anyway, so then I was like, maybe I'll be a doctor. I was terrible at science, so I don't know why I ever thought that would be a good idea. And so I kind of got to the traditional point of graduating high school, and I knew I wanted to go to university. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I really enjoyed history, and so I ended up doing a history and archaeology degree, which has absolutely no bearing on my current career, apart from university being wonderful and formative and life skills and learning as well. Kind of, you have to formulate an argument and you have to be able to write and those things. But so the like academic part of it didn't have a lot of influence on this. I had a friend working in a PR agency, and she said, why don't you come and do work experience with us? It's like, sounds fun. I've watched enough Sex and the City to, know Samantha Jones and think that PR is...
Who's your favorite character in Sex and the City?
Yeah, probably Samantha.
Yeah, Samantha's great.
Yeah, there's bits of each of them I'd take and leave.
I'm not a big Carrie fan.
No, I don't know if anyone is.
I've met somebody who's a huge Carrie fan. I was like,
really?
Huge red flag. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
Main character, but like not the vibe.
Terrible person.
Yeah.
She got everything she deserved.
Yes, I agree.
So I thought that sounded really fun, and kind of my first few weeks in PR was a little bit like seeing color for the first time.
So what job did you land right out of college?
So I landed with Nylon.
University?
Yeah, with a travel and like lifestyle small boutique PR agency called Nylon. The words were put together like New York, London. We all thought it was very cool at the time. Yeah. And I landed...
We're so hip.
I know. I landed with them, and I had my first meeting. The first week I was there, Marriott were their client, and my first meeting, that was one of my first meetings, and they were like, come along to the meeting and take notes. And I was like, I hadn't even graduated yet. I'd like finished university, I'd done my final exams, but I had to take time off to graduate. So I went and sat in this meeting, and they were talking about all the different brands and what was going on with the hotels in Europe. And I just sat there and I was like, this is someone's job. Like, someone gets to do all of this with hotels. And
who were the people that were like, what titles were you taking notes on?
it was the PR director for Europe.
Got it.
But I grew up in a big family, so I have 3 brothers, and it was very expensive to travel in hotels when we were children, so we didn't. So when we went to the equivalent of like a British equivalent of like a Red Roof Inn, we were so excited. Like, it was the best thing ever. You got your own room.
You felt like you were in the
Ritz.
Yeah.
You had your own room. You had a lock on your
Dinners,
door.
You had a TV. Yeah.
Totally.
Independence.
Yeah, and so I then had this fascination with hotels because we never stayed in them, and so kind of sat in this room where people were talking about brands and storytelling and press and hotels. I was like, whoa,
this is cool.
Like, this is it. I'm home.
Yeah.
I found it. That was week 1 of my job.
That's awesome. And so what skills did you take from that first job? And also, how'd you get that job? Because, I think after just most of our audience is younger, between the ages of 21 and 26, and getting that first job is always, weird. It's either, you get to introduce somebody, or, you just, hammer LinkedIn, or how'd that happen for you?
Yeah, I'd done some work experience. So I think if you're in a position to, and not everyone is, but if you're in a position to just get even small snippets of experience in different places, it helps you actually find what you love. So I had done some work experience with my friend who had then moved to this agency, and I have a lot to thank her for, but she essentially convinced them that I would be a great hire based on nothing other than the fact she liked me and wanted to work with me.
Good friend.
Great friend. And I interviewed with them. I also kind of convinced them I knew a lot. It was a bit of a fake it till you make it situation. But I also think, look, for PR, I do not believe you need a qualification in PR. It is one of those things.
What skill sets do you need?
You need charisma. You need to be confident. You need to be analytical. You need to be able to write. So you actually need to understand what makes a story. You need to be able to engage a journalist. You need to be able to believe in what you're selling.
Yeah.
And you need to understand the media landscape. That you can tell in an interview. You don't need to train it.
Absolutely. I fully agree with that. And I started my career in PR, so I totally understand. With Starwood as a PR manager, how did that transition from Nylon happen so seamlessly?
I think probably a relatively classic move for junior PR people. Worked with the client. I'd worked with some of the brands in Asia Pacific, so I knew the Starwood Europe or the UK and Ireland team as it was then. And role came up. I had made the connection with them, and I knew quite early on in agency that I really wanted to go in-house, and I wanted it to be with one of the major hotel groups.
So I'm curious too, what's the biggest difference for you being agency versus brand side?
I think really it's the brand piece, right? Which is probably a nice thing now. I've ended up in the brand team, but you either love, we don't either, but I guess you can love PR and you can love generating coverage and finding the stories and talking to the media, or you love the industry you're in, beauty, fashion, and for me it was hospitality.
An affinity for that. Yeah.
And it was hospitality for me. I needed to be in what was happening in hotels. So that was why I wanted to go in-house, because I wanted to be closer to the business than the PR piece of it. And so that's what happened with Starwood. Moved in-house. Yeah.
And this was still Europe?
This was
UK,
London-based. The role was UK and Ireland PR manager. We were the press office for all of the UK and Irish press. We sat in a wider Europe team, and it was fantastic.
And so you go from brand side or from agency to brand side managing agencies.
Correct.
Which is a buzzword, jargony term. I apologize to everybody listening. But how do you go? How does that skill set kind of transfer? I
will say, I think anybody in PR needs to do a stint in agency. I think you're doing a disservice to your clients, to your agencies, to yourself if you don't, because it's such hard work that you actually learn.
I started off at agency, so I get it. Yeah.
You learn what it takes to make a story. You learn what
Yeah.
it takes to be hung up on 17 times by the same journalist and
And
told
get
to stop calling.
underpaid a little bit, but it's okay.
Yeah, that too.
We forgive you.
But so I think it makes you a better manager of agencies to have experienced it. So the skill set really moved, I guess, from selling, but like pitching the stories specifically, to knowing what it takes to give your agencies the tool to pitch it.
Absolutely.
And so now it's like you have to give people the right brief, and then you have to get out of their way and let them get on with the pitching.
For sure.
But that was the big shift.
So when you change over from Starwood to Marriott, Marriott is obviously all over the world, but it's mostly U.S., no? Or am I just a jaded American?
Not a jaded American. It's U.S. based, U.S. headquartered. There is a high proportion of it in the U.S., but now it's truly global.
Gotcha.
So at the time, Europe, the Europe portfolio was definitely significantly smaller than the U.S., but not small by
Gotcha.
most people's standards.
So what about Marriott made that the right move for you then?
I think that the difference was expanding the region. So it was a Europe role. So I was looking after the UK and Ireland. So to move into Europe, you got all this like
A lot of territory to cover.
a lot of territory, every country completely different. Every media landscape was completely different. So it was a lot of new opportunity to learn France, Italy, Spain, Russia, and the difference in the media markets, what works, what doesn't.
What's the best Marriott hotel in Europe?
In Europe? It's I guess what you would traditionally call a Starwood brand. It's now a Marriott. I stayed recently at the W Costa Navarino,
Okay.
and it was like life-changing.
Okay.
Greece.
I'm going to, that was just a selfish question that I wanted to ask.
Yeah, it was incredible.
When you move over to lifestyle brands, like what for our audience, what is a lifestyle brand, and what did that entail for you?
For me, I guess something being classified as a lifestyle brand on a very basic level, I'm looking to create something within that brand that appeals to something a consumer enjoys in their lifestyle. So
what brands
what are you
under
passionate
Marriott?
about?
Yeah.
So the brands that, if you want to put classic being, I want a traditional hotel stay that answers everything I need, from a business center or a conference room or a desk. That's your traditional brands.
Sure.
They're there to serve a great purpose. If you want a lifestyle brand, you're looking outside of the travel needs. What do people love? That is art, music, fashion, sports. Where are brands appealing to me outside of travel, even while I'm traveling? So I can be like, this brand's a bit of me.
Very
and
cool.
it likes what I like. Therefore, if I stay with them, I am kind of furthering myself. It's a bit of a, sounds really
Jargony.
jargony, cliche. It's a bit of a Maslow's hierarchy of needs situation.
Yeah, okay.
Shelter.
That's very low on the jargony terms that I've heard today.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Very low. Maslow's hierarchy needs is probably like ranked like 7th out of a lot.
Okay,
So
great.
we will take it.
Yeah, you've got your food and shelter.
Sure.
That's I need the right hotel at the right
Sure.
price. And as you go up to like the self-actualization tip,
Yeah.
I guess you have people who are like, I want a hotel with art that I want to look at on the walls.
Absolutely.
I want a hotel that supports emerging music. And like, you can get all of this because there's so many brands now.
Yeah.
So if you can get it, then why not create a brand that offers it to consumers who want it?
Absolutely. I want to talk about too, like you end up being the director of global brand marketing for Aloft and Moxy. That's not PR.
No.
And it's adjacent and important, and I'm sure you're working with the PR teams, but it's not like, how'd you take that jump, and like what made you feel like ready for it and that you were craving it?
Yeah. So I was in London. The Starwood Marriott merger was happening, so all these new jobs were being created as two companies came together. And we had an event, and one of the team from New York was over, and her name's Diana Pavlov, fantastic marketer. She ran entertainment marketing, which was kind of a hybrid between like traditional marketing, PR, it was events, it was experiential.
Yep.
And she had a role come up on her team in New York, and she'd said about it, and I was like,
And this is where Chelsea comes in.
this is where Chelsea comes in. She said she had this role, and I was like, I would do that job. And she was like, really? So I was like, yeah, do you want to move me to New York? She was like, I mean, I can try. And that was
The rest is history.
The rest is
So
history.
you have to tell me about Betsy.
Okay.
Who is Betsy and why is she so important to this journey?
Betsy. So when I moved to New York, and you're given a relocation specialist, which I had no idea what this was. I had landed, I had like 7 hours
JFK,
sleep.
whatever.
I wake up, and Betsy, head to toe leopard print, peroxide blonde
Unreal.
hair, about 65, 70 years old. She turns up and she's like, Olivia,
Hey, Toots.
literally.
Let's go to
She
Manhattan,
was like,
baby.
Yeah, she was Estelle from Friends.
Yeah. So good.
And she sits down and she's like, all right, we're going to go to the bank. We're going to go to the Social Security office. But first, we got to work out where you're going to live. I was like, okay. She pulls out a map of New York.
This is just you, right?
This is just me, sat in the lobby of the hotel I'm going to live in for the next 7 weeks. Have just left all my friends and family and a job I loved.
Yeah.
Opens a map and she goes, where do you want? I was like, oh, I have absolutely no
I
idea.
just imagine her pulling out the subway map of Manhattan with all the lines and
She's got a big. She points to the Bronx. I live in the Bronx. You want to live in the Bronx? I was like, I don't think so. I don't think so, Betsy.
Yeah. Love
I don't
the
think
Yankees,
so.
but no.
She was like, what do you know? I was like, I know where my office is. That's one point. And I know I have a friend who lives in the West Village. She goes, you can't afford the West Village.
Nobody can afford the West Village.
Okay, thank you, Betsy.
Carrie Bradshaw lived in the West Village, right?
Yeah, that's why she's just a massive fraud.
That's why she's the worst.
No journalist.
Nobody ever.
Especially not.
I actually
she's
don't.
not
I don't
even
know
a staff writer.
I don't know anybody who lives in the West
She's
Village.
freelance.
Yeah, but you can just maybe back in the 80s. I don't know.
She'd never get the references.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Betsy goes, you can't afford the West Village. So I was like, thank you, Betsy. Here's the New York charm I'd heard about. She goes, what about Chelsea? You can walk to work. That was it. I was like, okay. They show me 7 apartments in Chelsea 2 days later, and I picked one, and that was that.
The rest was history.
The rest was history.
And so what were one of the major differences between New York and London? Because I love talking about people about like cross-cultural exchange and just like being an expat and the other terms, but
I think work-wise, the major differences was when you worked in a kind of Europe office, around the table would be English, Dutch, French, Italian, Polish, Russian, American. And so you have to adapt your style to meet all the different styles of these different kind of cultures. And everybody's very different, from
absolutely
direct to analytical, this. I came to America, 90% of my team was American. And I was called it a lot.
Do we suck or not? Are we cool?
You're cool. I like you.
All right, we're cool.
I love Americans.
Cool. All right.
Absolutely. But I was like the foreigner, which I was called a lot, and did suggest to the Social Security office that they rebrand that term.
How many times did you get, I like your accent?
I got told I like my accent a lot. I will admit, I probably did take the advantages that the accent gives you, in that people think you're smart just by speaking.
Just wear glasses and have the accent, and it's done.
But so that was a big difference, right?
Sure.
You have, and that's absolutely fair that everyone's American. It's the size is equal. It's fine.
Yeah.
But that was a big difference. But I think in terms of the benefit of, if the bulk of your consumers are American, living there, there's no replacement for living there. And that would be the same for any brand, whether it's you want to be in Asia Pacific, you want to be in Latin America. When you actually live there and you understand the culture, like an example of the difference, points. Americans are obsessed with points and credit cards
and rewards
and loyalty
5% back
and everything. And when
have you ever seen the show, the coupon cutters, where they like, it's like, actually, you owe me $20.
But I would like sit at my desk and somebody would be like, what credit card do you have? I was like, what the fuck? Am I allowed to swear? I was like, I don't. I moved here a few weeks ago. I have no credit.
100%.
So I have a Citibank debit card, and people would be like, people would turn around at their desk and be like, you don't have a credit. You got to get the Chase Sapphire. I'm like, I don't know what the words you've just said are.
Yeah, that's capitalism. That's that it is.
But we work in hospitality. We sell hotel rooms. best channel that you always want to sell is
Hotel.
direct.
Yeah.
And so the loyalty makes a huge difference. In Europe, the OTAs, Booking.com, Expedia are so big because no one's loyal, no one cares.
Absolutely.
So actually understanding those cultural differences from a business perspective, massive.
You have your stint in New York, you have that main character Sex and the City spot, and then you decide to go to Yotel. And personally, like I've stayed in Yotel a couple times and I've absolutely loved it. And I thought the brand was so cool just from
Thank you.
I remember driving down like the West Side Highway or it was
Yep.
either on like 9th or 10th Street, I forget. And
10th and 42nd.
Yeah, 10th. And because I used to work at Hudson Yards, and I remember seeing it, I was like, oh, that is sick branding. Like it sticks out of the crowd. What about Yotel made it the right move to be the VP of brand there?
Yeah. I think coming from a huge organization like Marriott, if you're going to, like, what is next is you either need to stay really big and accept that your role can be quite specific. So if you're in marketing in a huge corporation, you're in marketing. That's it. Or the option was to go something smaller, a little bit more entrepreneurial and everything that comes with that, and understand actually the business a bit better. So Yotel I'd always known. I hadn't known much about it in like necessarily the recent years. But I knew the brand. I knew it fit really nicely with, I'd worked on Moxy and Aloft before. And so the opportunity to come and look after their brand, and they were going through a massive period of growth and change, was just super exciting. Made it a no-brainer.
And like when you're saying like VP of brand and comms, like when you say that, like I know what it means because I'm in the industry, but like what does that actually mean?
I did this with my dad in a restaurant.
Explain to me about.
He literally was like, I still don't, and I was like, okay, give me the menu.
Explain it to me like I'm 5.
I was like, okay, this is me with my dad in a restaurant.
Okay.
I was like, this is a logo. The way they name their food is all fun because they're trying to be a fun brand.
Keep it going. This is
like
good.
the pictures, the way they photograph their food, the way they communicate about it. On the back, Dad, they're driving people to social because they want to take you outside of just the restaurant to keep learning about the hotel. So that's them pulling you into their digital ecosystem. The website's on there too. And then the napkin, look how the napkin, has a voice. And like that napkin talks about like, oops, you spilled. Like, Dad, that's called a brand voice.
And that's what I do to make the big bucks.
Literally.
Yeah.
No, I have also, so I'm a huge Diet Coke fan.
I'm also addicted.
Like,
we got some, I think.
I find it to be like a part of my personal branding. So if I go somewhere and I ask for a Diet Coke and they say, and this is no shade to Pepsi, everyone has their corner, but if they say, oh, it's Pepsi, is that okay? I'll say, I'll take a sparkling water. It's that different to me. So from a branding perspective for a hotel, I want somebody to go 3 blocks out of their way because they love the brand. Instead of it just being location, price.
100%.
Yeah.
I'm curious about brand because I run marketing for our company, and like how do you get there's a lot of employees at Yotel, right?
Yes.
There's the front staff, there's the cleaners, right? There's I'm sure I'm missing a ton, right? But how do you get them to embody the brand and like buy in and actually feel it?
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's a struggle for head of brands everywhere.
100%, and it's so much more of a struggle when you're not just selling a product that goes on a shelf. It's we work really hard in head office, but
it's an experience too.
The minute you get to the hotel, that's everything. So we have a really strong culture. So Yotel was created to challenge the status quo of the hospitality industry, and we pull that culture training through every employee. So they understand that you work here because you challenge the status quo, because you are authentic, creative, smart.
Sure.
And so basically by instilling the culture into them and getting them to be proud of who they work for. And we physically do this by going around every single hotel and delivering this training regularly so that people think, if someone thinks I love working here, that then has an effect on the guest who understands that they love working there. And that's,
What were some of the biggest pain points coming in as brand, and how did you address those?
Yeah, nobody likes somebody who comes into a brand and wants to change everything. It's a very annoying thing to do. It's exactly what I did. No, I'm joking. The brand was fantastic, and I had the most interesting thing with Yotel because I came.
Yotel had a prior. I knew Yotel prior to
Yeah.
the last 2 years that you worked there, and I thought their brand
Yeah.
was exceptional.
They have very strong branding, and they have what's even better is they have an incredible product. So to come into something where almost the product outperforms the branding was very unusual because normally you get these like
Vice versa.
ridiculous
Big
brands
promises.
created,
Yeah.
and the products are let down.
Sure.
So change is a pain point, but what we looked at, most importantly, was that the guests who we had created the brand for previously had changed. The way people travel has changed, the people traveling has changed, bucket lists no longer exist. It's a to-do list because you thought at one point in 2020 you were never going to get to travel again. So that's gone. People are like, even if I don't get my hair colored, I'm going to Singapore. Like people are sacrificing other stuff for the things that they might never have got to do for a moment. And so that's just massively opened up the guest we have. So when we looked at the new guest, actually who was staying, you could then see a reason to update the branding. And so that was a challenge, an excitement. It was great. We've moved into this place now where we have all new visuals, new tone of voice, all these things. It's going very well. But you stay really firm on the fact that we were brought in to challenge the status quo. So as long as you don't come in and try and throw the brand out completely, you're just enhancing the whole strong on strategy.
It's a delicate balance.
Yeah, they're strong on strategy, fresh on execution.
Absolutely. I got one more question before we enter the quick question round. Just we've been trying to do a better job of highlighting women in leadership roles. More than 50% of our audience, about 60% of our audience is female. I just want to hear from you, if you were to give advice to your 21-year-old self or somebody who's trying to break in the marketing field or whatever field it may be, what advice you'd give them?
One of the best things I've done and that has served me very well is to say yes to as much as you're comfortable with. I'm not going to say yes to everything, but opportunity. So when I was working in the entertainment marketing and my boss at the time said, I want you to take a traditional marketing role. We've got this job, and I'd never done that. I cried. I was like, I really like my job. Please don't make me do this. He was like, this is a big opportunity. But he said, yes, you push yourself out of your comfort zone. The traditional, I think, piece of advice that is really true, you don't know what you're capable of until you do it. Women can lack confidence, question themselves. You do not know what you're capable of until you do it. You don't know what you're going to love. You don't know what you're going to hate. It's all a great lesson. Just say yes to opportunities that are presented to you. You're good enough to do anything. And if you fail, you learn. And I just think saying yes is actually really powerful.
Amazing. Well, I think that's a great way to kick off the Open Fortune quick question round.
Okay.
Last thing, we need to introduce our sponsor or reintroduce our sponsor, Open Fortune, who has flipped the fortune cookie on its head by creating an ad platform out of the 47,000 restaurants that distribute these bad boys. So before we start, we're going to crack open a fortune cookie and see how it relates to our episode.
Actually, I carry a fortune around in my wallet.
No way.
Yeah.
What does that one say? That one's...
This one or that one?
No, that one.
That one says, good news is coming.
Good news is coming.
Yeah, it felt like a nice omen to have on me every day.
100%. It's good vibes.
Yeah.
That's it.
Love a fortune cookie.
Yeah. That's awesome. I'm surprised by how many people actually do keep, one of my best friends, when she found out that I was working for Open Fortune, she kept it on her, or not our fortune, but a fortune that she's been having on her for 8 years. And I was like, that's so cool. In the back of her phone case.
We'll take all the help we can get.
You go first. You're going to say the fortune, and then you'll see who's on the back of it.
Okay. The fortune is good company is its own reward. So true.
I thought we had good company.
Great
good
company,
vibes
yeah,
today.
thank you. Which is from Zell.
Great.
Love
Zell. Mine says, you can only fly once you take the leap. And then it's Duolingo. And it tells me fly in Chinese. Okay, we're going to go quick.
Okay.
And just rapid fire, first thing that comes to your mind, spit it out.
Okay.
Person you'd most want to sit down to dinner with.
All 5 Spice Girls.
If you had to pick one Spice Girl, who is it?
Emma Bunton.
Favorite city in the world?
Victoria Beckham.
All right, we'll change it. Victoria Favorite city in the world?
New York.
Is it okay to sleep with socks on?
Yes.
Boom, my team. Favorite rom-com?
Oh, 4 Weddings and a Funeral.
Favorite grad from your alma mater?
Meaning where I went to university. My friend Chloe.
Great. Shout out Chloe. In 40 years, what will people be nostalgic for?
Human connection.
We already are. What's the worst advice you've ever been given?
Just get a seat at the table. Bullshit. If anyone's at your table, let them contribute, compensate them. It's not enough just to get a seat.
In one sentence, how would you sum up the internet?
Scary, but also really fun. That's
Great.
really crap.
No, I like that. If you were to put a message in 10,000 fortune cookies across the country, or 10 million fortune cookies across the country, what would it say on the fortune side?
Good news is coming, because that's the one I carry in my wallet.
Yep. And in 2033, where can we catch you?
Oh God, hopefully retired in the Alps, skiing and walking in the mountains.
Love it. Well, I hope to see you there.
Okay, you're welcome. Open invite.
Amazing.
I can't even work out when 2033 is from today. 10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, I think
not
I did that math right.
Didn't get this job for my maths.
Me neither.
That's only 10 years. I won't be retired. Sorry.
Yeah, it's all good. Great to see you. Great to have you on the podcast. And
Thank you.
hope you had fun.
Thank you so much for having me. I had a lot of fun.